Identifying distortions. The chapter on cognitive distortions introduces 9 specific categories of distorted thinking that contribute to lower self-esteem. Identifying and confronting these distortions can become a major component of your treatment program. Because we always feel the way we think and believe. So, by changing the way we think and believe, we will change the way we feel. And by changing the way we feel, we can also change our character or point of view, the way we behave, the way we engage with the world, with other people, etc. So it's one of the best things that you can do for yourself. And while you may invent your own terms, it's important to define the particular distortion as clearly and with as many examples as possible. Example: therapist. I am saying that words like stupid, fraud, and idiot are toxic labels. They are labels because they are total indictment of you as a person. They are global put-downs. You're not saying that you are ignorant about taxes. You're saying, I am a stupid person. You're not saying that you feel insecure about certain task at work. You're saying, I am a fraud. These terms are a total dismissal of all of your strengths and assets. They are pejorative and brutal because they generalize the negative and forget the positive. They are plain wrong, inaccurate. Part of our work is to find ways to get away from these labels and become more accurate. And that's what defining terms comes about when I was saying that we have to be exact and define. Like saying I am a fraud is a broad overgeneralization. I can say that I feel insecure about some things, etc., that I am getting better or that I'm not as good as I want to be in some situation. But to say that I'm a fraud, that's just not true and another generalization. So here the therapist has defined the distortion and is also defining the task. Now, she starts teaching the client about how to substitute accurate language for the toxic label. Okay, you're calling yourself a fraud. This is a pejorative, a generality. What's the accurate statement? Client: that I try to look more confident than I am. Therapist: continuously or just in certain things? Well, mostly in terms of the gas chromatograph. I look like I know more than I really do. And the therapist says, so, is the accurate statement that you know less than people expect about the gas chromatograph? And the client would say yes. And the therapist: that's very different from being a fraud. That's true. Fraud is a big exaggeration. So we can also exaggerate the extent to what we call ourselves. Like telling you are a total failure or I am a total failure. No, I failed at many things, but I also succeeded at some things. So it's just the way we look at things. During your first few sessions, ask many specific questions about the content of any self-critical thought. For example, what did the critic say to you when you visited home? When you finished the term paper? When your son got angry at the end of our last hour? The more you learn about the content of the critical voice, the better prepared you will be to confront specific distortions. When introducing the concept of cognitive distortions, focus only on the most significant ones. Don't overload the client. Most people can't remember to fight more than 1 or 2 negative thought patterns at any given time. So remember, also when you go to do that, work with yourself, remember to be gentle with yourself, to start to learn to become supportive to yourself. Instead of putting yourself down, learn to be supportive. When you are first looking at distortions, it's helpful to review 3 or 4 self-critical cognitions and show what they all have in common. For example, the therapist says, last week you talked about being late and called yourself a screw-up. Then you were struggling with your tax forms and said that you were stupid. Today you described yourself as a fraud and an idiot at work. Screw up, stupid, fraud, idiot. These are toxic labels that really undermine your self-esteem. They are part of the problem we are working on. Every time you use one of these labels, you want yourself a little bit more. You cut a little deeper into yourself. Have you noticed how much your critic uses toxic labels to put you down? So here you can see how we used and get to know the client and the person in front of us, and how is in different situation is usually using the same tactic to put himself down using overgeneralizations. So the client, or you or me, can fight back by saying, no, this is an overgeneralization. I am not an idiot. I have made some great achievements, so I cannot be a total idiot. I may behave sometimes idiotically, etc., 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 but I'm not that. That's just labeling. So it's like a mental gym. Okay? And the therapist in this example has done her homework. She can point to specific examples of toxic labeling so that the confrontation has more impact. She has chosen the term toxic labeling, officially known as global labeling, because her client is an organic chemist and the word toxic has more meaning for him. So we can use different language that is also suited more to the person we're talking to, or to ourselves in this case. Your best technique for helping the client arrive at a more accurate statement is Socratic questioning. This is a method that Socrates used to expose logical inconsistencies in the arguments of his students. And here you have three main lines of questioning that you can use. Questions that expose overgeneralization is like, is it true that you always screw up? Every single task? You do nothing right? Ever? Okay, and you start to answering yourself truthfully, ideally on paper. 2. Questions that expose faulty labeling. Is it true that getting a B means you're screwing up? 3. Questions that expose the lack of evidence. What evidence do you have that people think you are screwing up? So, are there any real tangible evidence out there in the world, and can you list that? Or is it just mind reading? And here's how it might work during a session. The therapist. So lately the kicker's been telling you that you're ugly. Client. He's been on me with that a lot. Therapist. Is every part of your face and body ugly, or just some parts? Exposing overgeneralization. Mostly my nose, and I think my chin is weak, and my stomach is spongy and out of shape after the baby. Therapist. Are there any parts of your body that you like? The client say, my legs, I guess, my hair and my eyes. The therapist. So you are generalizing 3 features among many and labeling yourself completely ugly. You see that? Is taking some parts and generalizing it to everything. And the client says, yeah, it's kind of crazy. And the therapist says, is it true that your chin and nose are totally ugly and repulsive, exposing faulty labeling? And the client says, well, they are not real attractive. And the therapist says, but are they really ugly? And the client, no, not really. So what's the accurate statement? What would the healthy voice say? And the client would say that my legs and hair and eyes are nice, and I don't like my nose, chin or stomach. So you see, here we are saying like it is. So it's not everything that is bad about that person or about myself. It's just some parts that I don't like. And we can go even further and start to accept ourselves the way we are. So we can say, okay, I don't have the legs that I want, but I can work on that. I can improve on that. I can become better. I can grow. I can make them that special part even more special, or I can say, yeah, I accept that about myself, and I have decided to treat myself better, and I have decided to give myself more worth, and I have decided to work on that part of myself. So, first, I will work on my mind, I will work on my body, and I will improve. And that's just a fact of life. The more time I will give into something, the better I will become at that. And the same holds true for self esteem.